running. We're having a little issues with the coolant. The oil's good, no leaks. Seems like everything's working as it should. So yeah, sounds cool, very loud.
What are we missing back here?
I think just some tires. Put some tires on it.
Just needs an alignment.
Yep, that's all it needs.
It's so loud! Now the wheel won't go blah whenever you launch. We got some new brake pads so we can stop when we go really, really fast. We got some new brake fluid. New brake pads on it, eh? Sometimes you gotta stop.
Sometimes.
Intake cutting for all that ram air. Yeah. Well, we wanted to check to make sure trans had adequate fluid in it because we had the trans cooler lines off, and good thing we did. I don't know how the trans cooler lines would have leaked that much fluid out, or if the people who put the transmission in before us didn't fill it all the way up. She'll love it when they put shipping stickers on the plastic, so all the residue is on there nice. It's great. No extra labor.
What do we better do?
I'm a little scared. We put about 50 miles on it. We took it to my buddy's shop guide line. We did put a C7 starter on it and had a Corvette big 2 upgrade, which basically adds a power and ground run. It starts up much faster. We did swap the oil filter, cut it apart. Looks pretty good. We're gonna put it in the Dyno. I'm scared.
So, saw a little bit of smoke coming from this valve cover, right where that temperature sensor is, around this area. So I think it is. So we're gonna pull it off, check the seal, make sure everything's fine in the gasket, and see if it leaks from there.
See the map sensor data, but it's doing weird things.
Yeah.
So then it goes back up. I don't know. We might need to try to replace the map sensor because it's doing lots of weird stuff. At least it's pretty easy to change, right?
Yeah, just right here. Not bad at all. 1 bolt.
Red pill, blue pill. I was hoping for a little better ethanol content. We put roughly 10 gallons in, but we're only at E58. So we put a few gallons, 1R in. So it's a new day. Right now it feels a little bit cooler than it was yesterday at 4:35 o'clock. was really hot yesterday. I left very sad yesterday. Thought you could tell. I was like, really? This is all the power we got. We didn't hit 4 digits. And, you know, we had some things we're going to try. We put 10 gallons of E85 in it yesterday. We'll pump, you know, probably E70 from Sheets. Got it up like E58. The best pull I had, well, still had some fine tuning to do tuning-wise, fuel and timing, but we're only at 947 horsepower. Roughly peaking about 19 pounds of boost on the 2.5 inch upper pulley. So I was pretty disappointed. On our chassis dyno before, which, you know, at that kind of power level, you're always kind of, but supposedly it made like 1,060, I think. On the smaller pulley setup, but obviously old motor, lower compression. So we were going to swap the pulley today because I was like, I'm not leaving until this thing makes at least 1,000. So we're just going to swap the pulley. I was like, hey, let's just put some 1R in. Let's go ahead and test the intakes back to back. Because obviously more boost, more heat. And these cars, you know, when you're doing with heat soak, you're talking 40, 50 horsepower swings. So really, spinning the blower faster is going to cause more heat, which is going to make it more difficult to do back-to-back testing with an intake. So we put 5 gallons of 1R in this morning, got it to E68, let it warm up, get some fluids, put a little bit of load on it, and then did a pull. And so now we're gonna let it cool off a little bit, put a few ice cubes in it, and we'll put the old LMT intake on it and see how it affects power.
Round 1, fight.
What you got?
Here's the 2 intakes. So this is the newest, biggest, baddest $2,500 ram air Kong intake. Dry carbon, so matte rather than glossy. Here's our glossy carbon LMT intake, which we had on there before, which drove well. I mean, I was happy with it other than the, I don't know if you can see, but there's like some fish eyes. So I had to have my guy clear coat it and sand it a few times to try to get it smooth. Just because from the manufacturer, it was not very nice. But yeah, we're gonna see if this intake's really worth $2,500. All right, so we got the LMT intake on now. I also broken ass Craftsman 15 millimeter. So they don't make them like they used to.
All right, got our Haltech ECU all wired up. This thing's ready to go out on the road.
Sweet, I'm excited to see what it'll do.
Yeah, let's take it out there and let her eat.
Let it eat?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You know, like put the pedal to the metal.
Well, what's she gonna eat?
No, not literally eat. It's figurative speech.
Oh, you mean like if we go run it like a scalded dog and it throws a rod gasket or a head bearing, and I'm like, man, this is gonna cost me an arm and a leg to fix.
Yeah, now you're getting it.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, me and this Subaru are getting pretty hungry, so what are we gonna eat?
I got something for you.
We often use idioms and other figures of speech, like metaphors, to describe something, not in a literal way, but it can help to express an idea in a more simple way for us to understand. So in John 10, when Jesus says, I am the door, did Jesus mean he was literally a garage door or a wooden post to walk through? Or when he says he's the good shepherd, my sheep hear my voice, is he saying that we literally physically have to become sheep to follow Jesus and be shepherded by him? Obviously not. Yeah, Jesus used these statements for a reason. He used them to tell us something about himself. And so really that's one of the most commonly asked questions in the Gospels. Jesus asked people, who do you say that I am? And that's a pertinent question for us today. Who do you say that Jesus is? Because one day we're going to stand before him. We're going to give an account for what we believed about him and what we did with it. How did we act? Did we follow him? Did we worship him? I mean, Jesus is the most historically studied person in history. I mean, every world religion at least acknowledges that there was a Jesus, that he was either a prophet or a man from God. And yet, who do you say that Jesus is? So you can try to suppress Jesus, you can try to ignore him, but he's there. You can't escape him. Because we know that if we truly take him for who he is, It'll radically transform our lives. So some atheists might even try to argue that Jesus was just a good moral person, which for one, if you're an atheist, you don't have an absolute moral standard, except in the Christian worldview, you have God's moral law written upon your heart, Romans 2. But yet, if you say God doesn't exist, you don't have any way to say something's moral or not. But secondly, Jesus can't be moral, because if he claimed he was God, he claimed he was going to judge the living and the dead. And he's not, he's either a liar or a lunatic. And that's why C.S. Lewis said, there's only three things you can do with Jesus. He can either be a liar, he can be a lunatic, or he can be God himself. He can be Lord, your creator, and the God which you're going to stand before one day. So over the course of Jesus' life and ministry, people either hated him, they were terrified of him, or they worshiped him. There wasn't anybody who would just like kind of mildly approve Jesus as this good guy. And so obviously we like to test products on cars, but we need to test this guy's claims. He claims to be God. How do we know? Well, he spoke like one who had absolute authority like no one ever before. He did miracles no one else could do. He had power over the wind and waves, nature. He knew what men were thinking. He knew people's lives. In John 4, he knew the woman who had had 5 husbands. Just met her that day. I mean, God has all knowledge. God has all power. God owns creation. Only God can forgive sins, and only God can raise himself from the dead. And so if he is God, he demands and deserves our absolute life, obedience, worship. I mean, he's worthy of it all. And he could have been totally good just to send us all to hell, and yet he came and lived in our place as a substitute and loved us while we were yet sinners, so that we could be forgiven and transformed into who we were created to be. So that's how Jesus is able to claim, like in John 8, unless you believe that I am he, that I am God, you will die in your sin. He alone has the authority to judge and to forgive sin. And so at this point in Jesus' life, he had proven to the crowds and to the Pharisees and to his disciples that he was God. He had done all these miracles. He claimed to be the I am. He claimed to be, before Abraham was, I am. And yet, people were upset with him. They said, how can we be enslaved? We're not slaves to sin. We're not enslaved to anything. It's like in America. We think we have freedom. God bless America. Yet we're more enslaved to sin. I mean, look at news headlines. People literally enslaved to their own selfish desires and lusts, trying to satisfy self, trying to find purpose, trying to find happiness, not in God, in sin. And so we might think we're free because we have some kind of religious background, or my parents were Christians, or I went to church one time, or I pray to God whenever I need him. But yet if you're not found in Christ, you're a slave to your sin. The Bible only gives you 2 options, either a slave to him or a slave to sin. And yet Jesus offers freedom. He offers that whoever is found in him, whoever bows the knee to him, will find true freedom in being a slave of his. In the same passage, Scripture never represents that we're all children of God. Jesus actually says they are children of the devil because they did his will. He said, if you loved me, or if God were your father, you would love me. But yet they didn't love him. You know how they didn't love him? Because Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. So you can say you love Jesus all you want, but you don't love his bride, the church, and you don't love his commandments, then that profession's worthless. You can say you love God, but we only get God through Jesus Christ, God revealed in the flesh. And so Jesus uses this phrase, I am, which in the Greek is literally ego eimi. And the Greek translation of the Old Testament in Exodus is the same way that God revealed himself to Moses. So when Jesus says, I am the door, or I am the good shepherd, he's claiming equality with the God in Exodus, the God of the Hebrews. So just like we saw in part 1 of the video, God revealed himself to Moses and the Israelites as the I am, the all eternally existent, self-sufficient, completely independent and free being. He's not claiming just to be created by this God or a servant of this God, but he's claiming equality. This God who alone is worthy of praise and glory and honor forever. And the Old Testament said, I give my glory to no other one. Who was like me? No one. And yet Jesus received glory. Jesus received worship and honor and praise. In Hebrews it says he is the exact representation of God's completely distinct and glorious character. No one's like God except Jesus, because Jesus is God. Hey, boy, I need you to go take out that haul tax and put that carburetor back in there.
All right.
Okay, so if you look here, our IAT is at the start of the run with the Kong. Ram air intake 93, and it basically peaked out 107, climbed up to 120 as the car is coming back down to idle, 121, and then that was basically the peak. So the car hadn't had any downhill runs on it yesterday before we did that. We did let it warm up. I did put it under some load to get the temps up. We did let the car cool off quite a while yesterday while we swapped the intakes. I had to tune another car, kind of thing. So this was the LMT intake over the Kong. It's actually making more with the LMT up to basically 6,500. So what happened was the oil temp wasn't all the way up. And so it basically hit, you can see right here, because the oil temp wasn't high enough, it actually hits a rev limit. It drops 9 degrees of spark out, RPM limiter, 6,800. So we let it cool off about 10 minutes with 2 fans on it. We did put like 4 or 5 ice cubes in it. You can see the starting IT is actually 10 degrees higher than with the Kong intake. Again, this is no tune changes. One thing I did notice was the LMT, because it actually hits a higher MAF frequency, it actually is richer. So the Kong intake, the red line, was high 11s, 12.0 air fuel ratio at 7,000 RPM. The LMT, which we have a video of that, was actually closer to like 11.0. So it was actually pretty rich for E85. You can see starting at 105 manifold air temp, 10 degrees of spark, basically ramps up, 19 degrees, highest KPA, 237, 238, 239. So very similar manifold air temp, very similar 116. I think it was 120 in the other graph. It does peak about the same, 119, 124. So very similar air temp, same 10-second run with a 2-second delay, or 2-second load delay. So you can see, I mean, they're almost identical, but this is with the hood open. So I talked to Colin yesterday, and so we already have the shroud cut for the ram air effect for the other intake. And so he thinks, we're only seeing 10 horsepower difference right now at 7,000 RPM. And LMT actually made more power from 4,000 to 6,000. So what we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna try another test with the hood closed, and we're gonna get some painter's tape and tape off the shroud there. So we'll do some more pulls with the LMT, and then we'll put the Kong ram air back on, because I still plan on running it. At this point, I spent $2,500 on it. So, and I have the LMT sold to a guy, so we kind of have to run the Kong. All right, so we got it taped. We're gonna close the hood, let it warm up, put some heat in it, put some heat in the motors. Yeah. And then do some more testing. Doing it for you guys.
The next day.
Okay, so today's Wednesday. We did this testing yesterday. It was actually a little bit warmer yesterday. It should have been really hot the last few days. So, our best pull so far on the new Kong intake was yesterday morning. It's the red line at 1,065, basically E68 up at 70, but E68. So as you can see, we're basically doing a 10-second ramp run. We've got a 2-second load hold whenever we start at roughly 2,700 RPM. Basically just means the dyno holds it under full throttle for a few seconds before it actually releases and allows it to do the 10-second run. So you see that we started here right at 2,700 RPM. Timing's still pretty conservative. You're starting at 11 degrees, peaking out at 19. All right, so apologies. We actually totally somehow didn't record this the other day. After we taped up the ram air shroud on the radiator and closed the hood, so we didn't actually record any of the results. Here is back-to-back Kong ram air versus LMT, hood open, ram air shroud cut open on both of them. 10 horsepower difference, not much change at all. Crazy thing is the LMT is actually running almost a full AFR point richer here, and it's only losing 10 horsepower. So do with that what you want. But no tune changes, closing the hood, taping up the shroud. Car went stupid rich, lost a ton of boost, lost 2 pounds of boost, and went all the way down to 968. So we then leaned it back out to get it to the same air fuel ratio as this pull. And so same timing, 19 degrees, down 41 horsepower over the Kong. So this is, so basically though, you can make the LMT almost just as good just by cutting your radiator shroud and making it a ram air. I didn't drive it on the street any, Actually, I did. No. I didn't drive it on the street any with the LMT, with the hood open, obviously, or the ram air cut. I did drive the Kong on the street with the ram air shroud. Still getting some bouncy MAF frequency signals that we showed you other in this video. So either way, I think if you cut the shroud open, you're going to have to tune it in speed density, but you're going to make pretty much the same power. All right, so we got the new intake back on there. Second time. This time I did add some just weather stripping. I want to add a little bit of this just on the top and the sides to basically make it a perfect seal against that radiator shroud. So now we're going to finish tuning it on the LMT intake. We're still at 19 degrees, so I think we've probably still got another, 30, maybe 40 horsepower worth of timing. We'll kind of see how it goes. Idling fine. Overall, pretty happy with it. I think it could do more if I had a better optimized cam. I don't think LME did a great job as far as after talking to a few people. These cylinder heads don't flow a ton exhaust-wise, and so it needs more exhaust duration and it needs more exhaust lift. I questioned them when he was like, yeah, we can just put BTR 660 springs in it. And I was like, I kind of like to do 685s. Like, oh no, 660s are fine. So LME, I'm mad that you put 660 springs in my car. And I'm mad that you spec my cam the way it did. But the goal was 1100 to 1150. We're at 1089. We're up to 21 degrees. So I added 2 degrees to pick up roughly 25 horsepower. So it's not got a ton more power from timing. We're still at E68. So we're gonna drain the water out, put some fresh well water in it, a little bit cooler. Add 2 gallons of 1R, try to get the ethanol content up a little bit, and then just let it add its own, final degree of timing with the ethanol content addition. And I did richen it up slightly, like 1.5%, like not crazy, but the car really, based on the data graph, like the last pull I added 4% fuel and it didn't lose a single horsepower. So I think it likes the mid 11.5, 11.4 range even on ethanol. So yeah, we'll see if we hit our goal. Jesus says in John 6 that whoever comes to me I will certainly not cast out, and everyone who sees the Son and believes in him will have eternal life, and I myself will raise him up on the last day. So our prayer every time we make these videos is that people who watch would see the Son, not to see us, would see Jesus as glorious, as who he truly is, as God himself in the flesh, and that you'd believe, that God would give you faith so that you can believe and have the bread of life, have the living water, and enjoy him now and forevermore. Should we put some oil and rod bearing in the heat exchanger to see if it lubricates it better?
Let's do it.
Now she's flaring.
Oh yeah.
Hey man, where's your exhaust tips at? Bro, you used too much nitrous. You blew the welds on your intake. All right, so we're 5 horsepower away from our goal. Currently sitting at 1,095. I'm not trying to do too many pulls on it, just because we do have a much better catch can system coming. I do think we have some blow by. It's actually pushing some oil vapor around the valve cover catch can fitting. So we pulled 1% fuel. We'll do one more pull.
trying.
They said 5 horsepower was so easy on the internet.
Oh.
We couldn't get 5 more horsepower. So, 1095 is our final. Pushed out a little bit of oil out of the front main, I think. So we're not going to do anything else until we put the Synergy catch can on there, which hopefully we can get on there next few days. We might put it on the dyno back to back, literally, like everything else is the same, just to see if, you know, crankcase pressure was, you know, causing a loss of power. I don't think it'd be like 50 horsepower or anything, but hey, you know, 10, 15 horsepower maybe. Synergy claimed he's seen 20 horsepower gain from it. So these are our best runs from LMT Intake, 19 degrees, to the Kong Ram Air, 19 degrees, 21 degrees, 1089, 22 degrees, 1095. We might change the cam. I don't know. That's a lot of work to hope it makes a difference. Maybe. We'll probably put some miles on this one first. If you have any questions about today's content or Bible study, please reach out to us. You can find us on Facebook, Wretched Racing. You can email us at wretchedracing@gmail.com. If you'd like a Bible or any kind of gospel material, we would love to send it to you for free. We also have t-shirts and hoodies. Thanks for watching.